Germany lost around 4 million soldiers in World War II, but it seems like they've not learnt a thing. So just a few days ago was the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Now, before we get into this video, I'm not trying to say that the philosophies of the German government in 1944 are anyway the same as philosophies of the German government in 2019. I'm not trying to make that claim. However, there are parallels of why Germany lost in World War II and what's happening in the European Union today. Now, when we say Germany, Germany and France are the two powerhouses within the European Union, original members, both the largest net contributors towards the European Union. And Germany just being the largest net contributor and having the largest economy, people turn to Germany when there are problems in the European Union. So people expect Germany to fix problems, essentially. It has the most political clout within the European Union. And with all the problems happening in the EU at the moment, people are turning to Germany to fix these problems. Now, with regard to D-Day, D-Day on its own, when you just look at the statistics, D-Day on its own, the German soldiers killed, German soldiers injured, those stats compare very similarly to the same as the Allied soldiers killed and injured. It's not a huge differential. Just the battle on its own wasn't a huge turning point. However, why D-Day was so significant, because it led to the opening up of the Western Front. So prior to that, Germany was fighting the Russians in the east, and now post D-Day, Germany is now fighting Britain and America on the Western Front, which really stretched German resources and ultimately led to Germany losing World War II. Now, when we look at what's happening in the EU and the Eurozone at the moment, there are significant problems. Now, Germany and France could probably deal with any one of these problems on their own. However, we see multiple problems, multiple battlefronts all lining up at the same time. So the first is obviously Brexit. The UK government, the majority of MPs in the UK are all pro-Remainers. Now, if Germany and France had handled the EU negotiations better, Theresa May would have happily sold the average UK voter down the river. She's a Remainer, her government's a Remainer, the majority of the MPs are Remainers. They would have happily signed a deal that would have led to the UK essentially remaining a member of the EU, but just only leaving in name on only. Remain a member of the customs union, remain giving billions of pounds a year to the European Union. Britain's a net contributor by £9 billion a year. But now we're getting to because of the mishandling by the European Union, essentially the German and French taxpayer are going to be on the hook for £9 billion a year. And we're getting to the point now we're likely going to see a harder line Brexiteer as Prime Minister, potentially someone that's saying, we're not going to carry on paying into the European Union after 31st of October. The UK won't pay the £39 billion divorce bill. So this is now a huge headache for the European Union, especially Germany and France, whose taxpayers are likely going to start having to stump up more in taxes towards the European Union to make up the £9 billion shortfall that the UK used to pay in. The next battlefront is Italy. Italy really is the wild man of Europe at the moment. It's very unpredictable. The League and five-star government in Italy really is a wild card. It's almost hard to predict what they're going to do next. They're talking about setting up this parallel currency, the mini-bot, the mini-BOT, which essentially undermines the power of Germany, undermines the power of the European Central Bank. This is really fourth-dimensional chess that the Italians are playing, because whether they launch their own parallel currency or not, it remains to be seen. It's probably illegal to essentially... It would be illegal if it was a proper parallel currency, but they're kind of doing it shiftily. It's basically going to be a bond, a short-term tradable bond. But this is really fourth-dimensional chess, because Italy wants to line Germany up as the bad guy. Italy's in serious trouble. It's essentially bankrupt. There's not much it can really do. However, if it can line Germany up as being the bad guy, Germany and the ECB want to crush the idea of a parallel currency because they essentially lose control of Italy at that point. But the average person in Italy is really going to resent the European Union and Germany if they see that just German interference and ECB, European Central Bank interference, is stopping the Italians launching its own parallel currency, which the idea of the parallel currency is madness. It's madness anyway. But at this point in fourth dimensional chess, the Italian politicians are just looking for an excuse just to kick the can down the road a little bit more. Really, we should see Italy just default and leave the monetary union. But, this is ideological. This is just insane world at the moment. So it's very unlikely they'll allow that to happen. Besides the Italian battlefront, the Italy problem really delves deeper than that. You know, you have Spain in similar problems, you know, Greece is in similar problems, Portugal in similar problems. There are many European countries that are not far behind Italy. So we have multiple battlefronts that the Germans and the European Central Bank are going to have to fight across. You know, we see the Yellow Vest movement. The Yellow Vest movement is now up to Act 30. Obviously, these the protests now are nowhere near as big as they were, you know, but they're still seeing like 10,000 French Yellow Vest protesters taken to the streets of Paris and other French cities. You know, we're seeing the rise of populist parties almost linked in with the Yellow Vest movement. The average European citizen are turning to populist parties like never before. And this is all to do with just growing skepticism within Europe amongst their own governments and the European governments. You know, Euroscepticism seems to be surging across Europe. And the last battlefront they're going to see, which is a real significant one, is one that almost can't be contained in any way because it's global, is the global slowdown. This is the next large battlefront that Germany is going to have to be fighting, because Germany on its own could survive a global slowdown. However, Germany is essentially chained to all the other European countries. How are they going to survive the next global slowdown, especially a European recession? Now, this likely won't come for another 1 year or 2 years. You know, we have negative interest rates in Europe, at least interest rates at zero, negative in some respects. So, and that for the moment is staving off the recession. But what happens when we properly go into recession in 1-2 years' time, when the Eurozone itself drops into a proper recession? Where do they go next? Because interest rates are already at zero. So Germany is fighting on these multiple battlefronts. It has Brexit, it has Italy, it has all the other bankrupt European countries that it's essentially going to drag it under. You know, Spain, basically the pig countries. We're seeing the rise of populism, Yellow Vest movements, you know, the global slowdown. So Germany is fighting now on multiple battlefronts. This is fourth dimensional chess. How Germany plans to solve all these problems when they're all coming at the same time really remains to be seen. Let me know what your thoughts on this are. Is this essentially World War II 2.0, just Germany and to a lesser extent France, fighting on these multiple battlefronts? You know, they can contain Brexit if it was just Brexit on its own. They can contain the Italian debt. Well, they probably couldn't contain the Italian debt problem. They probably just have to kick Italy out, which ideologically they don't want to do. But Italy could be solved if it was just Italy. You could just kick Italy out. But they've got Greece, they've got all the other pig countries. They've got the Yellow Vest protests, which could flare up in other European countries. They've got the global recession. So there's multiple battlefronts all happening at the same time. People just don't. Germany doesn't want to admit that it is fighting on these multiple battlefronts at the moment. It's really interesting anyway how Germany plans to go forward over the next 1 to 2 years. Really remains to be is an interesting time essentially for German politics and European politics. Hopefully the UK will be out of the EU by then, because this thing is just a tower of cards looking to tumble down. So it's Jason from Liberty Bunker sign off. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Will Germany survive? Will they win where they lost in World War II? Jason from Liberty Bunker signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.